Okay, I wrote this out because I was like thinking about it today, and I just really want to share this story today. I think it's a useful story to share. So, if you already saw the story of, first of all, Shayla, you've seen the story of Lola. This is a story of Miguel. Miguel is my cousin. Miguel is Tati's brother. And some context here, like, there is no context really. Like, Miguel has been following me for years on Instagram. I don't follow him back. Growing up, I was like, my best friend growing up was his brother, but I was not friendly with him. Like, kind of, Julius and I kind of not hated him, but like, we weren't friendly. I don't know another way to put that. So we're like family members, but honestly, I couldn't tell you anything going on in his life. But I saw, like, I'm currently eating LA, so I made a new account, and it was like, oh, this is someone you should follow, and it pulled up his account, which I thought was like strange, because I was like, oh, like, why would I follow him? That's what I was thinking. Didn't say anything, but anyway, so I wrote out this story, and we're just gonna read it out because I feel like there might be some context here that applies to someone else. So this is a story about fashion, law, and community. So yeah, anyway, we're just gonna spiel. The world is so much smaller than you know, and there are actually consequences to your actions. Sometimes it seems as though you can simply watch something happen and take no action at all. I notice this often with Black Christians, and we will come back to Riley and how this applies to him, but let's start with Miguel. We will come back to Riley, but Riley's kind of a big deal. So I worked with Riley in 2020. Riley and Amina are both pretty big deals in Black America. Like, when after the Obama campaign, there was all these like Obama grants, and that's kind of what we were living on. At least Amina was, because she went to fucking Princeton, so you can get a lot of grants just by being on that campus. But Riley it looks like he's like a Columbia, NYU undergrad, NYU law, and now he's at Harvard. So clearly there's like Shahidi in the gang. I will say though, there really is something to the California mafia, because like Stanford and Berkeley are just as yoked as Harvard and Princeton. So this isn't really it's not saying much. Like, we already know what the pedigree princess is and that crew, but this is like another side of the country. So let's talk about it. Anyway, so going back to the story of Miguel. We are about the same age. He might be slightly older than me. We're cousins by blood, and his mother is my mother's sister. And we grew up knowing like a little bit about each other. We weren't very close, and we had nothing in common, even though he attended fashion school, FITM. So FITM is like this fashion school in San Francisco. They have a bunch of campuses. But there's so many young adults that attend fashion school and don't end up making like anything of it. I never paid much attention to what was going on in fashion school for him, given we didn't run in any of the same circles. And that works for me. Like I said, Shayla also went to fashion school, but given that I did not, there was no reason to participate in that at all. If I don't have anything in common for you, there's no need for us to have any common ground, period. That's kind of how I feel. We won't be sharing space. This is just how I feel. It's a personal belief. Anyway, so Miguel had a brother, Julius, and Julius was my best friend growing up. We've spoken a bit about Julius on this channel, but let's go a bit further to unpack the social significance of Julius, not just in my life, but also in Miguel's life. Miguel and Julius have the same birth mother, but have different fathers, like really different fathers. Miguel's father is Hispanic, and Julius's father is Italian. Miguel is homosexual, and Julius is heterosexual. Julius was my childhood best friend, and I barely spoke to Miguel at all. We would come across each other at birthday parties sometimes, but not very often, if at all. It was sort of like we knew each other by name, but not by personhood. I couldn't tell you his favorite movie, song, food, artist, nothing. We don't have anything in common. So I want to go back to the fact that his brother was my best friend growing up because it's important to the story. My cousin Julius was kind of like an Andrew Tate type of guy. He was very masculine, got a lot of attention from girls because he was what many would call a pretty boy. He looked like a tall Italian man, but because he had cousins who were all black and was very familiar with black culture, he was like a hip Italian guy. Anyway, I learned about like the Hot Boys from Julius, and I learned about the Saint Lunatics and Nelly from Julius. Nelly is actually very important in my life. Maybe I'll make a longer video about the social significance of Nelly in my life. That's a whole thing. Anyway, so I've spoken about my grandmother before, but of all of her grandchildren, she loved Julius the most. He was like her favorite by a long shot. She loved him to death, and I think he was a great guy. I like Julius a lot. But Julius kind of hated Miguel, mostly because Miguel was gay, and he felt like Miguel was an abomination. So Julius couldn't understand gay culture or gay men, and just kind of like sidestepped and ridiculed gay culture in every way. My grandmother was extremely Catholic, so gayness is not really something that's admired or tolerated in that religion. I'm not sure how that impacted Miguel as a person, but I know that he probably had feelings about that experience. Bad feelings, I would guess. I'm not sure. Like I said, we never really talked about it. Miguel going to fashion school made sense to me because gay boys love fashion. Though outside of Hayden Williams, that fashion digital creator, I wonder who else is making something. The thing about fashion is men wear nice clothes, and that is a thing, but fashion is a game for women. Like, women need the clothes and women are the consumers. If all the gay boys dress each other, it takes away from like the field of work you need to include the women. Like, that's kind of really important here. So like, let's go back to Miguel, his mother, and his father. So I mentioned that his father is Latino, and this is important to the story because like the Hispanic and Black communities are constantly at odds. So it's like all the time when it comes to beauty standards, there are many Hispanic people who believe that like straight hair and European features are what like make them beautiful. Like the crux of their beauty is simply them having straight hair. So they can have like a busted face, awful body, just the whole thing. But in their minds, they see beauty. So we all have seen it. I've talked about Rosalia extensively on this channel. It's just disgusting all the way around. Anyway, so they're unable to find beauty in anything other than whiteness, even if for the most part white people don't see them as white. That's a whole thing too. There are many Hispanic people who see themselves as white, but then Anglo-Saxons don't see them as white. This is a whole thing with Miguel, because if you're like a Mexican Hispanic, that's not the same thing as like a Spain Hispanic. It's kind of like the Cardi B situation, right? Like, I don't know if you look at Cardi B and be like, she's white. Do with that what you will. Anyway, so that's a part of another conversation. But if you know anything about the fashion industry, especially high fashion, you know that like African beauty is all over the runway. Like Anok Yai is like the whole moment, and African women have the best combinations of like face and body proportions. So like, where does that leave Hispanics? And I would argue there's like no room at the table for Hispanics. Like, how do you work in fashion in a multicultural beauty industry when you don't find multicultural beauty beautiful and your eye for desire is turned to gay men, right? So you might kind of understand the dilemma, but maybe this is something he confronted during his time in fashion. I'm not sure, but it looks like now he's turned to law. So enter conversations around what it means to work in a fuzzy field versus a hard field. So like, law is not technically an engineering field, but it is certainly something. I don't know where to place it, but I do know from around 2019 to 2021, I was surrounded by lawyers and had to learn a bunch about American law, which is extremely racist, and it's wild to see like Miguel go into law. Because like, why? Here's my problem with the legal caste system in America. Supposedly, there are a bunch of laws that are set up to govern and help people, but in some way, these laws have never worked for Black people, especially Black women. In my adult life, I've seen this play out. I have a whole legal channel. We could talk about that. Unfortunately, in the Black and brown community, so few people have ever really been given the tools or opportunity to experience justice, and instead have been forced to deal with a pseudo system of almost like hoation is what I call it. It's like extracting resources and situations from a group of people who there are solutions for, but the solutions just aren't like given to that population who needs them, and that's weird. It's like hoeing out. I always hear Lucas say that, and it kind of makes sense. Yeah, it just takes things from you over and over and never gives anything back. I'm not sure if that matters at all, given like the future of the society and the segregation of the races and ethnicities. I don't know if that matters. If there were to be some sort of justice or equitable system which would accommodate everyone, people would be forced to examine how in the past the resources were scattered at the top. So this is this big idea about the pedigree princess, right? The Stanford people, the Harvard people of the world, like they are going to have shit. Like the Berkeley grads, really the UC students, like how can you say it? Like if you're kind of born with shit, especially in the upper middle class, you're going to have shit. Like no matter what other systems people take and try to create privilege out of, you've just started with so much privilege that you kind of see it, but I don't need to go there. Let's see. If there were some sort of justice or equitable system which would accommodate everyone, people would be forced to examine how the past resources were scattered to the top. I just talked about that. I think there are conversations around assimilation that need to happen so that people who are new here understand how to participate in American society. And there are certain legal processes that can be put into place to move forward, but it's not easy, and there are not many black and brown lawyers who are willing to do the work. This is this idea of like civil rights, kind of like there's just actually not that many people working in civil rights. Like even if I look, I think that probably Miguel's gonna go into corporate law, and I think Riley is actually in corporate law as well. So nobody's doing like civil rights law. There's no money in it. Like you would only do it because you actually cared about people, and I don't know if someone's actually willing to like sacrifice their like life for the care of groups. I never see people do that in real life. I don't know though, maybe. Anyway, so I said, like, why is Miguel going into law, and what does that have to do with me? As a former engineer who worked with and knows so many people in law presently, I just know how shitty lawyers are as a whole. The reason this country is presently upside down is because certain people have no idea of how to apply the law. It might have something to do with more gay men losing rights and trying to find some way for civil liberties and the ability for people to marry if they're gay. I'm not sure, but in the grand scheme of things, most of the men in power in Congress are more like Riley, so let's talk about Riley. He's very Baptist, very religious, very orthodox, and I don't see a world in which Riley and Miguel get along and like work toward the same goals in the same industry. Like I just don't see it. And I kind of don't think that like Riley in his real life has come across someone like Miguel. And it's so strange because here I sit in the middle knowing that both of these men exist and they're kind of working toward very different goals. I just wanted to bring this together so you could see it for yourself. I'm not in law. I just know a bunch of shit about law because like I legitimately had to like figure shit out for myself. I know I can tell you about like building AI models though, and I guarantee you once I've solved a problem, it's solved forever. Anyway, so where else did I go with this? I don't see a world where they get along. I don't see it. Anyway, I said I never really liked Riley much as a person, but he does seem like a stand-up guy to some extent. He's a part of some fraternity. It's called AA. I think it's like the black one where the black, I don't know. There's so many black frats, but he's a part of one of them. I don't know what they mean. I don't know. Anyway, so what do you guys think about that? It's kind of an interesting story, right? And I'm gonna put this into a playlist that's maybe called like Unpacking Olivia's Family Members, because each person's story does kind of play into the whole of like how this sitch fits together. And unfortunately, I wish we were in a better place. Like I wish there was some happy ending. I really don't care. I gotta be honest. Like, of my family members, I like Julius. Never really saw it for Miguel, like I gotta be honest with you. I never understood the plight of gay men. I never got it. Even after all my time in art school, even at Miguel's existence, just a bunch of shit. Like I just don't understand. Like it just doesn't like apply to me. Like, but don't get me wrong, because I do value aesthetics. So you'll see me continue to write about like fashion, models, things that are aesthetically pleasing. But it's also not Miguel, because I don't think that Miguel is aesthetically pleasing, but I don't know. It's complicated.